We're on.
Hello and welcome back to the BCH Blaze workshops. If you don't know, hopefully you do by now, but if you don't, BCH Blaze is a Bitcoin Cash hackathon with now over 10,000 US dollars in BCH prizes, more than 20 BCH across several categories and bounties, which we have started not only to spread developer education in the scene, to get people excited about the new upgrade and to get involved, but also to spur people to create new projects with the help of mentors and compete in a friendly but fun and fierce way to build the best products that will be the future of BCH. We've covered all of that in the previous live streams, so you can go back and watch those. They're on the YouTube live tab on the Bitcoin Cash podcast channel, or on the Dora Hacks page, which is where the majority of the information is. I am your host, Jeremy, from the Bitcoin Cash podcast, and today we're doing workshop number 3, BCH infrastructure overview with Callisti. First, we have a couple of little announcements to get through. So sign up on the Dora Hacks. We're now at 73 hackers, which I'm very pleased about, but I would love to get it over 100. Hacking starts 1 week from now on Saturday the 15th. So you still have a little bit of time to read up on the information, prepare yourself to be part of the hackathon, basically. But sign up is still open. So head over to Dora Hacks. There'll be a link in the description. And that's it. You can also find there all the information to do with the event, the previous streams, the previous 2 workshops, all the information, everything about the prizes and the requirements. It's literally all there. So just hit that up and find out what's going on. We also have a very exciting announcement, is that we got some feedback from the participants that they were a bit concerned, or some of them were anyway, that we had made it a requirement to use the new Layla upgrades in your projects, and some people had ideas that they didn't think would fit with that, or they weren't deeply involved enough in BCH to be up to speed on the upgrades and so forth. So what we've done is we've created a new set of prizes. So there is the ChipNet track, which is our existing prize scheme that we already have. So to be eligible to win that, your project does need to have a contract, an on-chain contract involving one of the Layla upgrades, and that still has the 5 BCH first prize plus tickets to Bliss 2026 for your whole team. Then second place is 3 BCH plus 1 ticket to Bliss, and third place is 1 BCH plus 1 ticket to Bliss as well. So that's the ChipNet track, which does require the Layla upgrades. But if you have an idea that you're very keen for and you don't want to get involved in the Layla upgrade, that's also fine. And so we now have a mainnet track. There's no requirement to use the Layla upgrades for these. And for that, first place gets 2.5 BCH, and second will also get half a Bitcoin Cash. Plus, of course, you have the other prizes, which also have no requirement for the Layla upgrade. The Community Choice Award for 1 BCH, which will be voted by Blaze Vote Token. We'll do the airdrop for that probably on the stream next week when things kick off. And there is also the bounties. We're up to now 9 bounties, with possibly even another one in the works. So possibly up to 10 bounties. And that's already more than 3.75 BCH. So you can win those bounties also without necessarily needing to use the Layla upgrade. So there's plenty of prizes available for people who are not as deep in the rabbit hole, or who are not working on an idea conducive to those upgrades. Although the upgrades, it's nice to have them in there because you can then be eligible for the main prizes, and they are generic enough. So that should hopefully be possible for many people. But in the case you aren't, we've heard your feedback and we've created those solutions. Of course, you can also get mentorship opportunities or exposure to the BCH ecosystem and sponsorship and so forth whether you have the Layla upgrades or not as well too. So there's lots and lots that you can make progress on there with or without the upgrades. Speaking of the bounties, we have a new bounty by Tula. It's listed on the Dora Hacks bounty page, dorahacks.io/hackathon/BCH Blaze 2025. You just click on the bounties page. He's interested in composite cash tokens. The idea that just like you have stocks in an ETF, which maybe have an index of a certain industry or the NASDAQ or perhaps, the personal picks of somebody influential. In the same way, you can do that with cash tokens, but you can collateralize it on chain. So perhaps you could have a stable coin, which was backed 50% by Moria and 50% by Parity USD when it releases, or perhaps you could have an index of the top 10 tokens on Cauldron, and he's very interested in that. So there's now one BCH available as a bounty for anybody who wants to attempt a project to do with that. The full spec is available on the Dora Hacks page. And in one other exciting announcement, we have CashScript Pi is being released. There's a link to GitLab here, which is tooling for BCH, allowing people interested in Python to also use CashScript. We had questions previously about, well, a lot of the tooling is based on JavaScript. Does it have to be in JavaScript? No. You can use any kind of language you want to make a project for Blaze. And here is a boon, I guess, for the Python contributors, people that are keen to use Python. You now have that available as well too. So look into that if you are a Python hacker. We have one quick cash stamp, which you will not be able to claim with the very latest release of Selene. We have a small bug there, but if you're still on 2025-06, then you'll be able to scan that, or using Paytaka or one of the other wallets that will be.
We did just push the APK update just now before the stream started. So if you are an APK user, you can download the latest update. It should work.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. That might be the way to grab it, but it's fastest finger first. So maybe you probably missed this one, but you can be installed and ready for the next one. So thanks again to our sponsor, Cash Stamps. Check out stamps.cash and give away BCH to people in person. Right. Straight to business then for today. Our mentor is Callisti, who is the lead developer of Selene Wallet and also a fervent BCH Twitter advocate. Maybe give yourself a little bit of an intro, Callisti, and then let's get straight into it.
Oh, wait, you're muted.
You're muted, mate.
Yeah, right. Love that button, right? Anyway, hi, Callisti, lead developer for Selene Wallet. Hopefully most of you guys know me by now, right? We've been in the trenches together for quite a while. Always happy to be on the podcast. Not a lot of Twitter things going on lately. I don't even want to talk about it. Twitter is lame. I just want to let's go. I've been running a node since like 2021. I want to show you guys how to do it. Running a node is easy. The system requirements aren't crazy. I think if we are going to talk about Twitter for a second, I kind of decided to do this because there's the whole Knots versus Core debate going on right now, and in BTC land, everyone's like, oh, well, like the plebs, we got to run our nodes. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not important to run nodes, but I think that on that side, it's a little overstated. But I think that we can definitely use more BCH nodes. And so I'm going to show you guys how to do that.
Amazing. So just to highlight as well here, it would not be a requirement for Blaze that you run your own node, but it might be useful, as I'm sure you'll explain. And it is a important part of understanding the infrastructure and what goes into building BCH apps. But it's, just to be clear, not a requirement to run your own node for Blaze or to build in Blaze, but for some projects or for people who are curious, these are absolutely foundational technical skills on the infrastructure side.
Yeah, so I mean, I decided to run a node because I mean, it was just for fun, really. It was for hobby, but then I was like, okay, well now what can I do with it now that I have it? And so just a couple things you can do. I mean, obviously you can directly access the blockchain data, interact with other peers on the network who are running nodes. Your nodes will talk to each other and exchange transactions and block data. You can serve that data directly. For instance, people can bootstrap off of your node for initial block download, or you could serve it using a block explorer, which we're going to actually do. You get the best in class verification that you could have for a Bitcoin transaction. So with the mobile wallets, generally we're making a trade-off of not verifying every single transaction that goes through the network. We're just going to assume that if miners put it into a block, it was valid. And that's like, a extremely safe assumption, right? So if there's miner contention, you have bigger problems than your mobile wallet. That's where it is actually useful to run a node because you are, um, I guess in our case here, we're going to run a BCH node. So any wallet that connects to your server, trust that you are on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain and not some other blockchain. And trust is a big word in this space. It's supposed to be trustless, right? Well, at some point you're going to have to trust an infrastructure provider, right? You're going to have to, if you're not running that node yourself, you're going to have to trust somebody else's infrastructure. And so that's why it is important that we can run nodes on fairly cheap hardware. So the Bitcoin RPC, that's how other apps can interact with your node on the program level. So it's like an API for your Bitcoin node. And so, for instance, the Block Explorer is going to use that RPC. We'll go through setting that up. And then, of course, the other benefit is you can just directly broadcast your own transactions through the network. So in the worst case, if for some reason you had no other way to broadcast a transaction, you can always interact with the rest of the network this way. So today we're going to set up our own public wallet server so that other people can connect their wallets to your node. For our purposes, we're going to be doing this on the server. You could use a VPS for this. I provisioned my own kind of like fake VPS for this exercise, but it's got specs similar to what we're seeing here. This 64 gigs of RAM is actually like way overkill, but it's the cheapest that I could get for the 350 gigabyte SSD. SSD is going to be way faster than HHD or HDD. It's just faster, right? That's just how it works. So if you are going to serve publicly a wallet server, you're going to want that to be on a solid state drive. I recommend a 4-core CPU and at least 8 gigs of RAM just because that's going to make your initial block download way, way faster. It's actually kind of funny. My server infrastructure, I accidentally let my disk get full, and so the server that I had my node on actually kind of got really screwed up and I had to rebuild it. And I didn't do any kind of performance tuning on the node. I just used the default settings. And it took multiple days to do the initial block download. When I did do a little bit of performance tuning, which is basically just telling the node to use the extra memory that we have, the initial block download took only hours. So huge difference there. Also, giving more CPUs made a huge difference too. I have like 16 cores available on my server. I gave this server 8 of them to use. It only ended up using 4. So that's why I recommend a 4-core CPU to kind of maximize that performance. You can go on lesser hardware than that. You could run on a single core or dual core. You could run on less RAM. Really, the hard requirement is if you're going to run like a full node without any kind of pruning, you're going to need that 320 gigabytes. That's you're going to want more than that realistically because the blockchain is going to grow. But right now you can fit on 320 gigs. And then also for desktop, if you just have like a decent consumer grade PC or a Raspberry Pi with a hard drive attached to it, something like that, you can just run the node directly on that, or you can use the GUI. For Windows or Mac users, it's a great idea. It also comes with its own wallet, so that's an option. Let's see. You're gonna want to get a domain name, obviously. I guess you don't have to. You could always just use an IP address, but hey, if you're gonna go the full service and be a public node, why not get a domain name? Luckily, we've got a great service through Namecheap. They will let you pay in BCH through BitPay. I've been buying my domain names from them for the past couple years. I do email through them too. It's all just paid in BCH, and I love that. And I'm sure you'll love that too. So if you need a domain name, highly recommend them. They'll do your DNS also, so you don't gotta Either deal with that yourself or go to anywhere else for it. It's all just right there on that one interface. So that's how I manage all of my domain names. Highly recommend.
So what kind of things would you recommend? Like yours is at like ninja.cash, right? Or
Hmm.
bch.ninja.cash. Should people be thinking about anything specifically that they should have in the domain name? Is that important? Like, for instance, if they wanted to publicize it related to other work that they're doing in the BCH ecosystem to help them build up reputation, or should they just put their full name and address in there? Or like
I
what are
mean,
some considerations around that?
I think the real answer is it doesn't really matter, but I mean ultimately it's always names are signals, right? So I mean I have cashnode.bch.ninja. I could have done node.bch.ninja, but in my mind that's kind of ambiguous with like Node.js. Um, so yeah, whatever. We've got let's see, like I think bitcoincash.stackwallet.com, for instance. We could have done like node.selene.cash or Bitcoin Cash node or anything like that for Selene, but I made my infrastructure before Selene existed, and then two, like I guess we could do that now. There's not really any reason, but maybe I could run another node, change the domain or anything. But yeah, it is a signaling mechanism. Maybe I want to know who you are, like imaginary.cash. Well, I can just assume that's imaginary username, right? Um, so I mean, it helps. I mean, it's nice to have a nice domain name, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. You could go on straight IP if you wanted, and it wouldn't really make a difference.
Yeah, I just think it's nice. Definitely notice, like, once you've been in the ecosystem a while, you know some of the more prominent nodes or the ones that especially advertise to be used as infrastructure by other providers and so forth. And then that just adds a little bit of credibility to those people. Like, that they're serious and they're doing the community a favor by hosting up this public infrastructure. So if you're watching this and you're already a part of the BCH ecosystem and you're part of a company, running a node or two and making it linked to your brand could definitely be one thing that maybe it doesn't get the most publicity, but it certainly affects like the hardcore. They notice that, and yeah, just helps to build your credibility. So that's one subtle little benefit of running a node. But even if you're not, then you can also choose a cool, compelling name, and then maybe build a brand off of that over time as well too.
Yes. All right. We didn't test screen share, so let me make sure that we've got some screen share action going on because we're about to get up into the terminal. We're going to set up our server.
Yes, we've had a
Share
comment
screen.
here from Bruno who says, rewatching Dagger's Bliss presentation, Callisti created the expression smart transactions, but it didn't hold apparently. Bring it back. It differentiates BCH and makes more marketing sense. And of course, we're now in a world where BCH is starting to compete really nicely on DeFi and, of course, also the smart transactions, our comeback to smart contracts, especially with people starting to get the idea to call it the CVM, the cash VM, instead of the, in contrast to the EVM or arguing with people over Bitcoin script. I really think if we can get CVM into the lingo, it will help people to understand that BCH is pioneering these technical concepts and build up our credibility. It's an easy thing to be like, CVM, I haven't heard of that. Like, how is that different to the EVM? And then that prompts conversation, right? So yeah, smart transactions on the CVM.
Yeah, I like that. I like, yeah, cash VM, CVM, yeah. All right, we can see my terminal on here.
Yeah, can you zoom in a little bit though?
Cool. All right, we're SSH'd into my fake VPS here, so
Can you zoom in a bit? Might
can we
help.
zoom in? Yeah, let
Or
me.
just increase the font size. Yeah, a little
Oh,
bit
is this
more.
better? Want a little more?
Okay, nice. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, cool. All right, so fresh Debian install. I love Debian, really stable for servers. I live and die and swear by Debian, have for my entire life. We are now on Debian 13.1, latest version. All right, so first thing that I always do when we make a new VPS, we gotta update everything. So we're just gonna go in apt update, apt upgrade. Not a lot to upgrade here, very minimal. Love that. Okay, we gotta make a new user because we don't want our Bitcoin daemon running as I'm sorry, as root. So we're gonna add user. We're gonna call it Bitcoin D because Bitcoin daemon, that's just It's called very Unix philosophy, right? I don't give passwords to my users because I only use SSH keys. So no, I don't want to try again. Cool. I use the command passwd-l to lock down the account because I don't use passwords. That makes it so that you can't log in with a password at all. The only way that I can get into that account now is with an SSH key if I configure that, or right now I can SU Bitcoin D if I want. All right, so next thing we got to do, we want a firewall. You always want to firewall your server and make sure only certain things can get through. I like using UFW for that. It's called, it's not universal firewall, it's uncomplicated firewall, and it definitely lives up to its name. Apt install UFW. It is very uncomplicated. All right, all we need to do to proceed here, we're gonna UFW, let me clear. UFW, allow SSH, very easy. And UFW enable. It's gonna say, hey, don't lock yourself out of your machine, but we're not gonna do that because we allowed SSH. We're all good. Don't have to even mess with anything. So last thing that I want to do to harden my server is we need to just make sure that SSH only allows key-based login and not password login. I use Vim. Let me install Vim real quick. Text editor. You guys might want to use something like Nano if you're not as familiar, but I'm not going to disrupt my muscle memory right now. So anyway, we got to go into the file. It's slash etc slash ssh slash sshd underscore config. And we want to look for this line here, permit root login. We want to make sure that that is set to at least prohibit password. You might want to set it to no. If you don't want to log in as root at all, make sure you set up another user for that. We also want to make sure that this line here, pub key authentication is yes. And we want to say password authentication. I just searched for that. Go there. We do want to make sure that password authentication, uncomment that, and make sure that we say no here. That's all we really need to do. We need to make sure we reload the SSHD server. Systemctl, sorry. And that's that. All right, so now we've got a relatively secure server, and we can move on to the next thing. We're gonna have to get the BCHN software, Bitcoin Cash node. We can get that from bitcoincashnode.org. Only official site. Make sure that you are in fact on bitcoincashnode.org and not anywhere else. Otherwise, you might get an illegitimate node, and we don't want that. I'm running a Linux server. You guys are want to make sure you get the version that applies to you. If you're a Mac user, get the Mac version. If you're a Windows user, get the Windows version. The Mac and Windows version are going to be the GUI. Linux has the GUI as well, but I actually don't want to download that. I'm going to copy this link. We're going to go into our terminal. We're going to wget. Wget comes on most distributions by default. Just going to go ahead and save that. You can see that is now saved here. And we need to extract it. So we're going to use the tar command, xfz extract file gzip, and the file name is Bitcoin Cash Node, blah, blah, blah. We're going to tab complete. You can see that that's now extracted. And all we got to do is just copy these onto the OS. We're root, so we can just go ahead and copy this into user local, where all of our locally installed packages belong. Cool. So that's just going to copy over your Bitcoin D, etc. We're going to have to set up a couple more things. We're going to come back to this. We want to register it as a system service, but we're going to do that at the same time as Fulcrum. So cool. We have that.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat. One is from Motor Mike. He says, any Kubernetes/Podman deployment experience? I don't know.
Zero for me. I'm sorry. I have been adjacent to Kubernetes in one job that I had. It was somebody else's job to actually manage that part of it. I only have like a high level understanding of like how it works. I've never actually worked with it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I
It's
guess
something I actually need to kind of learn a little bit about because I plan on provisioning a chain graph server here soon, and that is built on a Kubernetes stack. So it is something I'm gonna have to look into here soon.
similar for
Maybe I could do
like
a video on it or
Terraform.
something.
Yeah, similar for like Terraform and that kind of stuff. I guess it would be really nice actually if somebody tries that out and then writes it up as a bit of a guide, puts it on Bitcoin
Hmm.
Cash research, or makes it part of Blaze somehow. We're always looking to try and archive and build up a repository of information for other people across all these different infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, we could probably set up some automation to kind of do what we're doing today. I mean, this all of what we're doing right now could just be a shell script at the end of the day, right? So I guess that's sort of how these tools like Ansible or Helm or whatever. Um, yeah, I'm kind of old school. Like I like my bare metal servers, my VPSs. I like going directly on the OS. I'll run Docker. I haven't ever been at a scale where I've needed Kubernetes. But Docker is pretty useful. And so if I'm scaling my Docker deployments over multiple machines, that's where Kubernetes is going to come into play. I've just never operated anything at that scale. Monoliths can still like a single server can still serve like hundreds of thousands of clients, or maybe you get two and load balance them. So I find that kind of scale unnecessary until you get to a certain point, and then it becomes very necessary. I've just never done anything at that scale.
I also wanted to ask as well, we're doing BCHN here. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to the different BCH node implementations, right? BCHN is sort of the default reference client that people are going to go for. It's battle tested, long running, etc. But there's also
Mhm.
alternatives for people who are keen to dig into that, right?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, BCHN is kind of the tried and true reference client. It was originally it is based on the original Satoshi client, much like most of the node software out there today is in general Bitcoin land. Um, yeah, Amari forked it into Bitcoin ABC, and now it's just kind of what we use today. It's just the historical node. But you also have um, Flowy the hub. You also have Knuth node. You also have BCHD. And I guess there's still Bitcoin Unlimited,
Verde,
but I think yeah, and then there's Verde, right? Did I miss any?
no.
I
And
think that's all
then
of them.
Bitcoin Unlimited, I think they're a little bit deprecated. I haven't seen them doing a lot
Mhm.
of work in the ecosystem recently. But if you go to bitcoincashpodcast.com/code, you'll be able to find more links to all of those things so you can poke around in the different node implementations if you want to. And this is obviously a guide for BCHN, but probably similar things apply to running and getting everything set up for another implementation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean the configuration, I mean you're gonna have to look at the specific docs for those, but let's see. So BCHN it's based in C++, Verde is Java, BCHD is Go, and they also have like the gRPC thing. And I think BCHD has its own indexer built in too. Don't quote me on that. I think that they do though. So there's always that, there's options. They claim to be like developer focused. I haven't really worked with it much, but it seems cool. Knuth gives you bindings to a bunch of different languages, which is very nice. Um, and then you have Flowy. I think Flowy has a unique database architecture for how he manages like transactions in UTXOs. It's like highly performant. So there's different trade-offs. And then I think also he gives bindings to other languages as well. So it's definitely worth looking into the different implementations, because I guess we could count liboth as a node implementation and to some degree as well. It doesn't do the networking part of it, but it does do the virtual machine part of it. So you could embed liboth into other apps and get similar functionality. So if you're a developer looking to build something that requires full node validation, you don't necessarily need to run the full node. You could just use something like liboth that virtualizes it, or you could look into something like BCHD or Knuth or Flowy and see if you could build on their stacks. They all kind of have their unique advantages, so definitely worth looking into them all.
Amazing.
All right, so where we're at now, we got to configure our BCHN here. So we want to become Bitcoin D now. I like organizing my files here so that it's easy for me to manage both the Bitcoin server and the Fulcrum server. So I just put everything in our Bitcoin D users home directory. So let's create that. I'm going to make some folders here. One for Bitcoin, one for Fulcrum, and one for cert files that we're going to use later. And then, by the way, all of these configs that I'm doing, I did host on the BCH.Ninja website. We'll talk about that in a slide later, but if you want to just get to the point and see everything ahead of time, you can go to bch.ninja/configs, and you'll see everything that we're doing there as well. All right, so Bitcoin is going to get a bitcoin.conf. I think the node comes with one, right? If I do a find with a grep in here, we love Unix, right? And it's for bitcoin.conf. No? Is it sure? Did I just okay, maybe it doesn't or include. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I just have to go find that somewhere. But that's why we host it on the website. So I'm going to cheat a little, and we're just going to go on and grab that config. .ninja/configs. This is the Bitcoin D home directory, Bitcoin, and I've got my bitcoin.conf right here. Mac is probably going to not play nice with that. Yeah, let me go ahead and open this in a text editor. All right, okay, so we can see this. Fake password, obviously. And I want to be Bitcoin. All right, so go ahead and paste that. So let's give an explanation of what this is doing. So you can see all of the options in the BCHN manual. All of those command line options can also be specified here in the configuration. We need to set daemon equals 1 to make it a server. This is as opposed to if you're like running the GUI, you're not going to have that. TX index equals 1. We need that for Fulcrum to work. And then server equals 1 here as well. For performance, DB cache, this is really the important thing. This is specified in megabytes. The VPS that I have does not have 12 gigabytes of RAM to work with. I actually need to make this lower. Let's see, I gave it 8 gigs. I think we can probably use 7 out of those 8 without choking the system, eh? So
yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking 7.5 maybe, but yeah, 7.
Yeah, right?
I've got 7.995.
Because we're right when we're doing the IBD, we need a little bit of overhead to still run the Block Explorer, but it's not that much overhead. So I think we can get away with giving 7 out of the 8 gigs to the full node. And there's 2 gigs of swap, so if it starts choking, maybe go a little more conservative. This will be kind of a live experiment. So we need to put 7168 here for 7 gigs. All right, so then these RPC binds are important if you want to have your node RPC, which is this is dangerous. You don't necessarily want to do this. You need to allow only localhost if you don't want this to be exposed to the public. You actually wouldn't even have this. But I put this here because my configuration on cachenode.bch.ninja, because of the way that my infrastructure is set up, I have like multiple containers and stuff. I like to keep it isolated, but we're pretending we're on one VPS right now. So everything is just going to be running on localhost in this case. We can still use 0.0.0.0 here to bind to all interfaces if you want, but then we have to have Bitcoin Cache Node will not allow you to run that way unless you also have this RPC allow IP. Because let's say you're actually using the node as your wallet. If you have that RPC exposed, that means that anybody can just connect to your node if they have the username and password and run any command on your node, including stealing all your money. So you don't want to expose that to the public. That's why we have this locked down this way. However, because I have a LAN set up for my Explorer, I do have this, and this would be set up appropriately for the LAN. And then finally, this ZMQ pub hash block makes Fulcrum a little more performant. It's just recommended in the Fulcrum docs that we do this, so we do. All right, cool. So that's our bitcoin.conf, pretty straightforward. and we can get into, let's make sure we
Is there
save.
many other like settings? I know you mentioned you can look them all up in the docs, but is there a lot of a lot of things that people are going to want to fiddle around with? Like obviously in BTC land, there's recently been a lot of controversy over this data carrier size flag and putting that in there. But for just somebody who is getting started for the first time, are you anticipating that they would need to mess around with any of those other flags, or is it more just kind of once you're once you're curious and want to pull on a few more strings, you can look into that?
Yeah, I would say generally no. Like there are a handful of interesting things in here and a handful of tools that a node operator might want to be familiar with. What some of the interesting things are, maybe not everybody knows that fee rate, for instance, is not actually a consensus rule, it's a relay rule, and that's something that we can set directly in our config. You can also filter transactions based on fee, so they don't even hit your node. They don't even get filter is one parameter, relay is another parameter, and then I think there's even a third one for that defines the fee rate for the dust limit on how much you'll relay there. So um, those are all interesting. I think as a community, if we ever found need to change any of those parameters, we could. I'm not totally aware of what the implications are if you were to change those on your own node outside of what the rest of the network is doing. I mean, I figure there'd be some amount of splintering that would happening, but no kind of chain split or anything because you're not a miner. And miners could set these, I suppose, on their own nodes or on their pools nodes, and then they would just mine those blocks, I suppose. So I don't think there's like really major consequence. I think maybe you could run some experiments where you could send a bunch of low fee transactions to your own node and then have some kind of relay setup where you're still getting them to miners. Um, so I mean, it's all very convoluted. Overall, you're not going to really need to be messing with these parameters. And then if we were, it would be more on the social consensus level. We'd be talking about that as a community.
So
But some
speaking
of those
about
interesting
this,
tools, though. Sorry,
yeah,
go on.
go on. No, go on. I've got another couple of questions, but only once you're ready for them.
Oh yeah, no, let's talk questions, then I'll talk about the other things that node operators should maybe know about.
Yeah, I mean, you briefly mentioned miners, so just maybe touch on that. Like if somebody is running a small at-home mining setup, or they maybe even a big mining setup, and they're interested in getting mining on BCH, would they do that with BCHN, or how would that work?
It's a little out of my depth. So I have a miner, but the way that I made my miner work, I just have a single Antminer S9. And I was connecting using P2 pool, which is like a peer-to-peer pooling thing. And that was run by the Tumen Bros, who are notorious miners in the BCH community. Um, So they just run a pool that I was able to ask for access for. And I just mined consolidating my hash rate with theirs, and then it splits the rewards. So presumably they run a node, and then presumably they run some pool software that connects to that node. But I'm not familiar with how the mining end of that works, like how the pool software works. I tried messing with it once, just to learn. Did not get very far. And then with the chipnet mining, we just use CPU miner, which if I maybe had a little bit more forethought, I probably would have thought about demonstrating CPU miner. Maybe we can wing it, but we'll see how much time we have. Um, yeah, so other than that, yeah, the node, as far as most people who are going to be getting into mining is concerned, you're not going to really be worried about what we're doing here. Yeah, you're either going to be connecting to a pool, or if you're running your own pool, then there's other software you have to install for that too.
All right, so that's a separate kettle of fish for another time. And Blaze is
Mhm.
not doing hardware hacking this year, although if you want to, you can. But it makes me think
I
that
mean, unless you
maybe
want to
next year or whatever.
implement some of Peter Risen's ideas that he was talking about with
Yeah,
Bliss, right? Maybe we could take some of that for some hardware hacking.
exactly. I was just thinking maybe next year we might have a hardware category or something, because that would actually be very,
That'd
very
be pretty sick. And
cool.
then yeah, like there's the guy doing the Bitcoin payment module, and the guy that did the similar idea that we have on our pin post for Selene. Like all sorts of cool stuff out there on the hardware level, in my opinion.
Yes, and one other question then is just about like chipnet. So if people are going to be hacking in Blaze on ChipNet
Oh
instead
yeah.
of mainnet. Is that one of the things that they want to
Yep.
adjust
All
in
we got
that?
to do is chipnet equals 1 right here. Boom, we're gonna go on chipnet now. So we can actually do that. I guess there's no reason not to. It'll make the IBD way faster. There's no reason to. We don't have all day. So yeah, let's just go ahead and make this a chipnet node. All you have to do is chipnet equals 1 in your bitcoin.conf. Any other questions?
We've just got one little cash stamp that we want to throw up there on the screen for anybody who is watching
Cool.
along and enjoying it.
All right, well, while that's on the screen, I'll talk about a couple of these other params real quick, and then we'll move on to Fulcrum.
Yeah.
All right, so I think the most major tool, like troubleshooting tool that a node operator should know is around upgrade time. If you don't upgrade your node in time, you might end up rejecting the upgrade block. And so in order to fix that, you have to get the block hash of the upgrade block, and you have to use it's not assume valid. I'm sorry. Let me look real quick if I can find it. I'm just like scrolling through here. Or maybe somebody watching just like knows off the top of their head, but
In general, you'll have plenty of warning though, like
I
the
think it's
BCH
called like
community.
accept block. It might be
Yeah,
assume valid. It might just be assume valid.
the BCH community is putting out upgrades on a 1 year time frame, but they do plan and announce everything with the lock-in on November 15th, and then this, getting kicked off the network or not following the next release would only happen in May of the next year, May 15th. So if you are running a BCH node, it's just a good thing to think at least once between November and May, oh, I should probably look into the upgrade and upgrade my node if I need to, because of course there'll be a new release of BCHN and all the different software if you're running one of the other nodes as well to upgrade and just prepare ahead of time. So you do have a huge 6-month window for that, but it's just something to keep aware of once a year. It's probably the one bit of node maintenance you need to do each year, besides just generally keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, and it's super easy to do the upgrade too. I mean, the same way that we just installed BCHN just by dropping the binary into user local. That's all you have to do for upgrades too, is just replace the binary. It's just quick wget, drop it in there, reset, good to go. Yeah, I can't find the exact command. I should probably know that off the top of my head, but I don't. Sorry. But yeah, so if you ever do run into that issue, I mean, we can also get support on Telegram. We're all in there. You can get some help from plenty of experienced BCHers and node operators. And yeah, that's all we really need. As far as like that's all the maintenance you're ever really going to need to do on your node. Otherwise, other than just managing your disk space, make sure you have enough overhead for the blockchain to continue to grow. That 320 is the bare minimum. And we haven't done IBD yet, but yeah, it's about 300 gigs, a little over, and that's not including Fulcrum either. Fulcrum adds about another 2 to 3 gigabytes. So speaking of Fulcrum, we can move on to that. We're gonna go ahead and download Fulcrum.
So what is Fulcrum? Why
Oh yeah,
are
sorry, I should
people
probably
needing
explain
this?
what is Fulcrum. Fulcrum is the wallet server. So Bitcoin Cash node is your node. Fulcrum runs on top of Bitcoin Cash node, and it's called an indexer. And what it's doing is it's scanning the whole blockchain, and it'll map where all of the UTXOs live by address. So wallets have knowledge of all of their addresses, but the blockchain doesn't really work on addresses. It works just on transactions and UTXOs. So the traditional way for a wallet to validate which transactions actually belong to them would be to kind of have a list of all the transactions they've ever made and then filter through the blockchain for those so that they know which UTXOs belong to those. With Fulcrum, we can just give it a list of addresses instead, which is much simpler for us as developers. There's just like less hoops we have to jump through to get our transactions. It's just very nice. And we can also know what state the address is in too, since that's kind of how we think about our wallets is in terms of addresses. So if we know if our address is up to date, because Fulcrum will give us what's called a state hash, which is just a hash of all of an address's history. Very, very nice protocol. It's based on the Electrum protocol. It's actually one of the most performant implementations of the Electrum Cash and Electrum protocol for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin. So Callan has done a really great job with this software. So we're going to go ahead and visit his website at fulcrumserver.org. And we're going to be greeted by this lovely autoplay music. What a cool website. Really brings me back to the year
Nostalgia. Yeah.
1996 or so. I used to have a GeoCities page that looked just like this.
He's
All right,
got the
download the
stars in the
executables from
background.
this hyperlink.
Moon.
That probably came through my mic and sounded horrible on stream. So, oh, we got this too. This dial-up modem. So cute. We're gonna download this. I guess it takes a second over dial-up.
So I just want to mention that this is for Selene users. I'm getting feedback from someone, but anyway, Khaleesi, can you mute maybe? For Selene users, I'm still getting it.
All right, there we go. We're finally. Sorry, guys. We just had to connect there. All right. Here's the URL. We want the Linux version. I'm sorry, Jeremy. Go on. What were you saying?
Well, I was just saying, if you go in Selene and you go in the network tab in your settings, and you can pick from a list of the Fulcrum servers, that's exactly what's happening there. So if you follow this guide and you set up your own Fulcrum server, then you'll be able to put that into the custom field there. There you go. You're going to be able to connect directly to your own node.
Yes, and we are going to do that at the end here. All right, so we got a wget fulcrum from that URL we just got. Cool, got it. And we're going to go ahead and untar our XFC again. All right, let's check out what we got. We got all this stuff. All right, whoops, sorry. I really want to get rid of that. Okay, so all we need are fulcrum. We don't even really need fulcrum admin. Let's just go ahead and copy it into again /user. So, oh, we actually need to be root for this. Okay, so copy fulcrum into user local bin. Cool. Now that's all done. And what else do we got to do? We got to configure fulcrum now. So we're going to cheat again. Now, sorry. Callan is quite nice, and he does give us some example config files in the fulcrum directory. We can see, yeah, the fulcrum example config, but I'm going to cheat again, and I'm going to use the one that we already prepared. Again, you can go to bch.ninja/configs. And this is effectively the same as the quick config that he provides there.
Khaleesi, we had a question from Carl. Is this the command for a post-upgrade fix? Bitcoin CLI reconsider block and then the block hash.
Yes, that is it. Thank you for looking that up. Yep. That is it. Okay. So I can just make this bigger. That's great. All right, so this is roughly the quick config that Callan provides. Hopefully that's big enough. All right, so yeah, Callan says the mount point needs about 35 gigs for mainnet, about 8 gigs for testnet. It's good to know. Okay, we need to make sure that we have the IP import for our Bitcoin RPC. The default port is 8332. So that's what we already have here. It's on localhost. If it's not on localhost, make sure it's where it belongs.
So
RPC
those match
user,
the bitcoin.conf, right? That we were adjusting
Yep.
earlier, the
Exactly.
localhost and the port number.
Yep, you got to make sure that that does match your RPC bind in the bitcoin.conf. All RPC user, Bitcoin D, RPC password, password123. This is also going to be the exact same values that are in your bitcoin.conf. All right, and then these are setting up the listeners for the wallet server itself. So we provide TCP and SSL as well as its equivalents for WebSockets. So for instance, Electron Cache on desktop is going to be using the TCP and SSL, mostly SSL, whereas Selene and Cachenize would be using the WebSocket version since they're technically web wallets on the back end. So we want to make sure that if you want your server to be public, you leave these on the defaults 0.0.0.0 with the appropriate ports. These are just fine for the configuration. If you do want to serve SSL, which is encrypted traffic, you are going to have to get certificates, which we're going to do shortly.
And
What
if
were
you
you gonna
don't want it to be public, if you want it to be private, then what do you do?
We make it 127.0.0.1 localhost, or you can also just type in localhost, and that way it'll only be local to your machine.
Perfect.
So then, yeah, we are going to have to get SSL certificates. So this kind of goes again with the organization. You can see if we remember, we made this certs directory earlier. I am going to end up linking my certificate files there so that we can access them, but they're going to actually live somewhere else. We're going to use the Let's Encrypt tools for that. All right, so we do want to make sure we set our host name appropriately. That way you're identifying yourself to the rest of the network appropriately. For my demo node here, I did create a subdomain. We're going to be bchnode.bch.ninja. Of course, set that appropriately for your own domain name. The rest of the stuff we can more or less leave as default. And this is why we based it on the quick config that Kellen gave again. Your donation address here, if you'd like. This is mine. This one is Callan's. And then you can also have a fun little banner.txt in here for people who like to go and there's in Electron Cache, there's a little console. And in the console, you can see the output of whatever your banner.txt is. Just a fun little Easter egg. You can do things like, oh, say what version of Fulcrum you're on, what version of BCH you're on. It's very inconsequential, but it's also hearkening to the old school days of the internet where servers like this did those kind of things. All right, and then I never use the stats thing. This is the default. But if you are using Fulcrum admin, you can get some metrics on your node. Very nice. All right. I don't have the stream in front of me, so hopefully we're on the configuring fulcrum.conf page.
Yeah.
And you can see my nice little graphic there of Lightning McQueen, because this is what I imagine when Callan is over here with his C++ wizardry trying to make Fulcrum the most performant software he possibly can. It's fast. And I can actually tell a difference when I jump around between different nodes in performance between nodes that have especially this poll time option versus nodes that don't. They tend to be much more responsive. So I highly recommend setting this poll time option to 0.5, especially if you are running on the recommended hardware that we mentioned earlier. It's just going to make your Bitcoin node, your Fulcrum server a lot more performant. It's going to make it a lot more responsive. You'll get your transaction notifications that much quicker. And for Selene, our gimmick is how quick that is. So shaving that extra 1.5 seconds off just by setting this config parameter really helps a lot, actually. We set this TX hash cache. We give Fulcrum a little bit of RAM to work with. The default is like something small, like 50 or 100 or something. So we bumped it up to 256. We want to give it a little bit of RAM to do its own database sync. It makes it quite a bit faster. I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. I just totally missaid you. It's the dbmem that does that. dbmem, we give it 2 gigs. TX hash cache, when your wallet is requesting the get history command, so it's getting your addresses histories. This can make that just a little bit faster because the Fulcrum server will have a little bit more cache in memory, won't have to pull off of the disk to get that history necessarily, so it can speed that up just a little bit too. But the biggest performance gains are definitely going to be from this poll time and from dbmem during the initial sync. Hopefully that wasn't a bunch of gibberish. And are there any questions?
No, I mean, I'm just also thinking, the BCH community is thinking about ways to reduce that IBD without necessarily needing to change around this, right? In terms of UTXO commitments and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
that's one of the
well,
biggest
this
hassles,
isn't for
right?
IBD, so this is specifically for Fulcrum. So, I mean, as far as BCHN, the IBD, yeah, the biggest thing that we can get is setting that DB cache higher. And then if we do want more performance improvements on top of that, we are going to have to look into things like UTXO commitments and whatnot, upgrades that are still in the pipeline. But for Fulcrum specifically, you don't have to do this. It just makes it that much faster. And then in the spirit of Callan, like we want it to be as quick as possible. And then in the spirit of Celine, we want it to be as quick as possible too. So these were actually settings that I recently discovered, which is why I wanted to highlight them, because probably not a lot of node operators actually like know that they could even do this and shave off that extra second and a half. It's just nice. Makes the whole network a little bit faster if we all do this.
So how do you know what is the upper bound that you can put in there? Could we make it faster even than
The
that
absolute
still?
lowest you can set it to is 0.5.
Okay. So
Yeah,
max it out.
that's just, yep. So yeah, and then there is Tor configuration here. I do not have a Tor configuration myself. It's kind of a nice to have. We would have to set up the Tor proxy, which isn't like crazy complicated. It's just not something I've ever gotten around to doing. Um, so where it's kind of outside of the scope of here, but there is configuration for that. So if you are interested in setting up a Tor proxy, you do that here. Let's make sure we save also. So we need to actually do that on the node. I just did that on my machine because I had just downloaded it, huh? So let's just go ahead and copy that over. Let me think about where I put it. It's on my desktop, right? Or in
Didn't you put in your
downloads.
user logo, right? You put
No, because when I just downloaded off the browser, I accidentally saved it to my local machine instead of to the node like I was supposed to. So let me just go ahead and copy that. My bad. .bch.ninja. Like, where are we? Home, Bitcoin D. Fulcrum. That's where we are. Great. We should see that here now. Awesome. Alrighty, so that's set. Now, what do we do next? We need to get our certificates. So SSL historically has been a big pain in the butt to get set up. There is a tool now that is very ubiquitous called Let's Encrypt that makes this very easy, and it's very easy to use on Debian. There are 3 things we're going to need to install here, and those are certbot, nginx, the web server, and python 3-certbot-nginx, because that's going to let us get SSL certificates through nginx.
Can I interrupt for just a moment?
Yeah, what's up?
I've got my Fulcrum config open. What were those 3? Oh, wait. Pull time, ticks. Okay, yep, found it. Never mind. All good.
Okay, cool. Am I root? I am not root. Haha. Cool. Now, we're going to want to make sure that we enable nginx on the system level so that it starts up and you start up your machine. Live streams makes me dumb, dude. I swear to God. Okay, systemctl, enable nginx. Make sure we do that in the right order. All right. And then in our firewall, we need to make sure, uncomplicated firewall, UFW allow HTTP, as well as HTTPS. And that's going to make it so that our web server actually works. Let's make sure we also start the web server. And we can check to make sure that that worked, because we can just go on the web and we can see that our web server is running. Woo. Alrighty. So now we need to get our certificates. Certbot makes this really easy. So we're just going to go ahead and certbot -d for domain, BCH node.bch.ninja. Obviously, you're going to fill that in for whatever your domain actually is. It's going to complain about this now. Okay. You can set up, you can put in an email if you want. It registers you to their database. They don't really send a lot of email. I like the EFF. I like getting their emails. We're not doing that today though. Got to accept the TOS though. And it'll just automate this for you. It's really simple. We just wait for a second and it gets the certificate using the challenge to our web server. And it's done. That's it. Now we have certificate files. So now we can see that that works because if we go here back to our web server, we can see that we're on HTTP. We refresh, it'll automatically upgrade to HTTPS. Very nice. All right, so now that we have that step done, we need to do one other thing, and that is link the certificates so that our Fulcrum server can actually access them. We're going to have to do some permissions things real quick. So when we're using Let's Encrypt, the certificates live in etc. Let's Encrypt. They'll be owned by root because they live in etc. And we can see here, if we are familiar with our permissions, it's only going to allow root to get into this folder where they live because we can see it only has read, write, execute permissions for only root and not for the group and not for anyone else. So we're root, however, we can get in here. And for our purposes, it doesn't really matter that it like we don't need to like have this locked down to root, so we can actually just do this. Let me clear. So let's see our directory. We can change group to Bitcoin D for our live directory. And I probably want to just do that for the file inside too. And then the only other thing we have to do is chmod. So we want to chmod G for group plus X or RX read and execute on the folder. And then group plus read on, oh, that's also a folder. So we got to do X on the folders. And then the files actually are in there. We want fullchain.pem and privkey.pem. We need both of those to be accessible. So full chain, we need just read and privkey.pem. And that should be everything. Let's just double check. Yep, we have read and execute. So we can actually go in here as live and we can change to our Bitcoin to user just to make sure that we can actually get that. I want to stay in the dir, so I don't want the dash. My bad. Muscle memory things, right? So it's clear. We can ls. We can see that we can get in there. We can get in there. It is red, so it's showing me that I can't actually access those. Oh, it's because I forgot to change group on the actual files. So let's go and fix that. Let's get out of root. Yep. Okay. ch group to Bitcoin B on full chain and on proof key. And now if I'm the Bitcoin user, what did I do? What did I do wrong, guys? Troubleshoot. Let's troubleshoot now, right? All right.
Let me see. Root.
I'll try CHO instead because oh, is it because they're symlinks? I didn't actually realize that those are symlinks themselves. But we can just see if this is just going to work if I use CHO instead of CH group. No, okay. Well, let's just go to the proper directory then. We'll just go a step behind.
I wish I could just slap Fulcrum behind a reverse proxy like Caddy. It does the certificates and then I don't have to worry.
Yeah, you know, I really wonder. You might be able to do that using Nginx Stream module. I haven't tried it. That might be a fun experiment, I guess, outside of the scope of what we're doing now, but we can experiment. Okay, so let's try CH group again. Actually, directly on these files. Full chain, why not? Oh, because that's the wrong. Tab complete, the original AI slop, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, cool. Now we've actually done this with the files, so let's go back to where we expect them to be. I guess it's because the links are owned by root. I guess it doesn't really matter, right? Because when we're going to go into our Fulcrum directory, and we'll just see if I can just link them. Maybe it's probably not going to work, but we should just make the links anyway because we're going to have to. So, etc. Let's encrypt, and then we'll figure out why it doesn't work after I do this because we won't hold ourselves up. Spell things correctly. See, we stopped using the tab complete and everything goes horrible. Okay, so we've got the 1. We've got the 2. There's still a grayed out. It's going to say it's a broken link. Yeah. But that's fine. We'll come back to that in a second. Let's get our service files in place. And we'll figure out our SSL certificates before we go live. All right, so system service files. Again, we're going to cheat. I think Bitcoin Cash Node might come with a service file somewhere, but again, we're just going to go ahead. I give you guys these files to make it easy. Let's go to our bch.ninja/configs again. And this time we need to get our service files. We're going to want all 3 of these ultimately. I'm going to wget them. I need the bitcoin.d service. And I need the Fulcrum service. And these are systemd config files. Systemd is like the services manager for most Linux distributions nowadays. Like if I do systemd, or sorry, systemctl status nginx, we'll see how our web server is doing, right? It's running on systemd. So we need to make sure that our Bitcoin and Fulcrum servers are also being managed by systemd. That's what these files do. All we have to do is copy them. So you can see our 2 service files. We're going to go ahead and copy them to /etc systemd/system. And if we tab complete there, we can see there's a bunch of stuff in here. We just got to drop it in there. You can see, for instance, our SSHD services in there. So this is a fine place to put that file. We'll go ahead and put Fulcrum in there too. And I'll show you what's inside those files as well. So here's what we've got inside those files. Just a standard systemd service file, nothing crazy going on here. Importantly, on the Bitcoin Cash node systemd file, you're going to want this datadir parameter. Very important. Make sure that's pointing to wherever you put your bitcoin.conf. Otherwise, your node is not going to work. Same with Fulcrum. You do want to make sure that you pass the location of your fulcrum.conf as a parameter here. Make sure that we're running as the Bitcoin D user and group as well. In fact, let's make sure that we have that on the other one. Yep, we have that Bitcoin D user and groups. Bitcoin D user and group for the node as well. So those are the most important things there. Everything else is just, yeah, like make sure it restarts when it dies. So systemd, to make those get recognized, we need to systemctl daemon -reload. And now, just like with nginx, we're going to enable those as system services. What is the Bitcoin D, right? And Fulcrum. So at this point, we can actually start the Bitcoin node and see what happens. Something went wrong, so let's find out. What did we forget to set up? Ah, chipnet config. So I misled you guys earlier when we were talking about the chipnet config. So let's go ahead and fix it. Let's go back to our Bitcoin config. The chipnet config actually needs to be in its own section called chip. So it actually needs to look like this. So you do chip in brackets and then you do chipnet equals 1 under that. Yeah. So let's go ahead. Now that we fixed that, we don't got to do anything else. We'll just go ahead and try to start Bitcoin D again. All right, now what? RPC bind. Oh, we have to put the whole config in the chip section, I guess. That makes sense. Cross-reference this with my chip, with my actual chip node config if this doesn't work. Yeah, okay. Let's look at what I'm actually doing in real life. Gotta stop scaring my screen for a second. 1 sec.
This is, of course, the classic of doing live demos and running tech and infrastructure, but that's what Blaze is all about, right? We're actually trying to bring the level up for the entire ecosystem. You know, at the moment, as always, whenever you're operating on the bleeding edge of technology, everything is not going to be really smooth. But as we were talking through this process, I was thinking, wow, it's really amazing how much goes on behind the scenes to make a simple Selene onboarding work so smoothly for them, right? At the end of the day, BCH is trying to provide a service to users, and all this complexity gets hidden like the underneath the iceberg, you know, the iceberg below the water. But it's just no matter how many years I've spent working in tech, you can never really appreciate just how many layers of everything between coding the nodes, the Fulcrum stuff, obviously the Selene process and development and release out to everyone, and then the comms that we do. All of those layers have to work for users to get that moment of like, wow, it was so easy to onboard. Oh man, that's actually pretty cool, you know. So we're definitely down here in the engine room, covered in oil and grease at this point.
All right, yeah, like, can I scan this file without revealing my... Okay, I gotta not share my screen for this again. I don't want to reveal my RPC password.
Yes. Or we could just run it on mainnet. We don't have to do chipnet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so on the left terminal, I actually just ran it on mainnet. Now I was just wanted to look at the chipnet config to see where I went wrong so I could show people. So now that I know, let me log out of this and I'll put my screen back on. There it is, screen button. All right, so as we can see, I took the chipnet config out, restarted it, and it is working here. We can see that it's loaded, but let's go ahead and take a look at the comp. So the problem that I had was my config actually needed to look like this. So chipnet equals 1 goes outside of that whole chip thing, but the RPC bind commands needed to go inside this chip bracket thing. So when we do this, it'll work. We can actually just check. Cool. So that actually worked without a hitch. So now we're actually syncing a chipnet node in the background right now. And we can use so we can see that it works there. System CTL says it's up, and journal CTL Bitcoin B. If we scroll all the way down, you can see here at the bottom that it did start successfully. There's no more errors. So we can actually see the IBD happening in progress once we get our Explorer up, which we will do next. We're going to have to really hit this SSL thing, though. We're going to figure that out. I'm going to actually cheat on the SSL just for the sake of time. I don't want to sit here debugging on air. So what we are going to do is I'm just going to go into the home directory, into the search directory. I'm going to delete these, and I'm just going to actually copy these directly to this folder, which It's not quite recommended practice, but again, for the sake of making this work right now on air, that is what we are doing.
And if you were going to do it the long way, how would you do that for people
I
following?
want to, my intent was I wanted to just symlink them here instead of copying them here, because that way when Certbot automatically renews the certificates after about 3 months, you won't have to manually copy them to your Fulcrum server again. If your certificate expires, then people aren't able to connect to your server anymore. So you're going to have to manually copy those over if you do it this way. If it's symlinked, then Certbot will just handle it for you. So this is suboptimal, but again, we're doing it just for right now to make this work. So I just got to make sure I CH own these to the Bitcoin B user, and then these will just work for our purposes. Great. Okay. So let's also start Fulcrum. Systemctl start Fulcrum. Now that we have SSL, cool, no errors. I love that. Journal CTL Fulcrum. Cool. And we can see that we're getting these connection refused from the node actually. It's trying to listen for connections on 8001 TCP Bitcoin D. So something went wrong with our Fulcrum config. What did we do wrong on our Fulcrum config? Let's look.
It was listing on 8001. That wasn't the port that we had, right? It was 8332.
Well, okay, so the listener service for HTTP serve, that's the stats service inside of Fulcrum. But this error that it's saying is that the TCP server for Bitcoin D, it's trying to connect to something else. So the 8001, that's actually working. It's having trouble connecting to 8332 here. Do we have netstat installed? Not by default. Can we get netstat? See, this is how we're going to start debugging now. We're going to get into the, sysadmin things. Oh, hello. Just app search netstat. Net tools, probably. Cool. So we can see that because we're on ChipNet, the node is actually listening to 48332 by default for ChipNet. So that's a caveat here as well. So sorry, guys, I rehearsed this on mainnet, and then I was like, oh, yeah, it's Blaze. We should do ChipNet. So I had this all prepared for mainnet. I didn't think about these caveats ahead of time. I'm sorry.
No, this is good.
But
This is good. We're getting a real flavor of how it should be. This is exactly what a hacking in place is going to look like. So
yeah, for real. So that's an easy fix. All we got to do is go on fulcrum.conf, and instead of 8332, we're just going to make that 48332. Save, systemctl, restart Fulcrum, and let's see if Fulcrum is behaving now. Oh, look at that. We're getting, look at that, very fast. All right, so now we have our Fulcrum server and our Bitcoin node running. We could stop here. We have accomplished our goal. The last thing that we actually need to do is open up our firewall so that we can actually connect to the wallet server, the Fulcrum server. So UFW, this is going to be the most complicated UFW command that we've used so far, but I promise it's still easy. UFW allow to any port 50,001 colon for through. This is a port range 50,004. Yes. If we want to get fancy, we can proto TCP protocol only instead of UDP. Boom. Oops, sorry. Clear. We have to status. And now we can see these are all the ports that we need open for our web server as well as our Fulcrum server. There's actually one thing that we did not do, and that is open the peer-to-peer network port for the node, which is by default on mainnet 8333. On ShipNet, it might not be that default. Let's find out using netstat. Okay, So, haha, glad we checked. UFW allow to any port 48333 proto TCP. And now anybody can, or sorry, here, UFW status. Now anybody can connect to our node for node purposes, official node business, such as broadcasting and sending transactions and peering with other nodes. Love that. So everything else is going to get rejected by our firewall, keeping our server nice and secure. God forbid there's some kind of exploit in any of the 3 pieces of software we have exposed to the internet. But I think if Nginx has an exploit, we've got way bigger fish to fry. Alrighty, let's see. So yeah, like I said, we could stop there, but we can go the extra mile and appreciate our full node by installing the SickPig Explorer. And that way we can also like keep tabs on how on our node health, how the IBD is going. We also could use the Bitcoin CLI tool. Let's try that. Let's see how our IBD is going. So we will use the Bitcoin CLI tool, Bitcoin CLI. We do need to pass the data dir here, which I think is capital D. Or is it lowercase d? Oh, just, okay, dash data dir. So Bitcoin CLI, let me clear. Bitcoin CLI data dir equals home Bitcoin D Bitcoin. That's where we put our config. And then what do we want to do? It's saying we need a command. So how about get blockchain info? A list of commands can also be found in the Bitcoin Cash node manual. If you click on the link that we gave you for the config options, on the sidebar, there's a link that says Bitcoin CLI. All of the commands will be listed under that link. So we can see here with our output, get blockchain info, we can see that our node is following the chipnet chain. We can see how many blocks we have. We can see that our IBD is already 99% complete. It says IBD false actually, which means it's done already. Yeah. And then it has this warning because I'm actually running BCHN 28.0.1. It's giving us this warning because this is the current mainnet release. Obviously, our Layla upgrade is 7 days away, and the node software does have an expiration for that. If you do want to run a chipnet node going forward, just yesterday, I believe, the Bitcoin Cash node 28.0.2 was released. Go prowl around in the Telegram channel for that. And if you wait a couple more weeks, the official release for the mainnet node will also be available, at which point we can all upgrade and be ready for the mainnet upgrade. You're going to want to do that ahead of time, otherwise you're going to have to go and use the command that was mentioned earlier that I already forgot again. Okay, so, but that's cool. We can do
reconsider
things.
block. Reconsider block.
Reconsider block. Yes, thank you. But I mean, yeah, we have lots of stuff we can do. Things like get network info is like another one of them. Yeah, and we can see that we're bound to my public IP address port 4833 or 48333. We can see that we're doesn't have any like proxy info here. We can see our version string. So like this is what other people are seeing when they connect, and it's pretty nice. Like I said, if you want a full list of commands, go take a look. But we can appreciate our node now. So let's go ahead and get the SickPig Explorer going. Make use of that web server. The SickPig Explorer, you can find it on github.com/sickpig/bch-rpc-explorer. You actually don't need to visit that. This is just going to give you, this is like the official site, etc. Here's that tx index equals 1. We need that for the Explorer as well as Fulcrum. Oh, and server for RPC. Yep, we already have all that. We've configured. So we're actually just going to, this is just a simple Node.js app. We're going to just npm install. I probably don't have npm already. Yeah. So how do we get Node on Debian? Can we apt install? Assuming this is the correct node. Yeah, okay, good. Always want to double check. Oh, there is another thing that I didn't mention earlier when we were installing the software, the Bitcoin Cash node and Fulcrum software. For maximum security, you do want to verify the checksums. While that's downloading in the background, I can show you. Here we have I'm Uname and Callan's signatures that show the SHA-512 checksums of the archive files that we download. So we downloaded this one earlier. In our case, Bitcoin Cash Node 28.0.1 x86-64 Linux. We want to make sure that when we download that, it has this hash. Let's take a look and see if that is in fact the case. So I keep doing that. My bad. We have Bitcoin Cash Node 2801, and it's a SHA-512 hash. So we SHA-512 some, put the file name in there. Yep. FAD15, blah, blah, blah. See, this is an example of what you don't want to see, is the hash not matching that. So what did I? So I feel
Was
like
it
I
on
did something
the
wrong.
zipped file or the actual?
This is the SHA 256 sum of the file that I have on the node that we wget earlier. This is what's in the announcements, release SIGs 28.0.1. This is signed by IMUname, SHA-512, and I just did 512 sum, yeah. And we got a different hash. Okay, but SHA-512 is twice as long as we can see here, and this. So these look like SHA-256s to me. So let's just try it with SHA-256. This is not actually part of anything important. Like this was manually put here. So let's try SHA-256 sum instead. B69E, B69E. So we did get the same sum. This just that was wrong. Okay, so scary, but that's actually a good exercise because we do want to see, oh, those hashes don't match. If the hashes didn't match, we actually need to be like raising huge red flags here because that means you don't have the correct software. There could be some kind of tampering with the node software that you downloaded. You could have gotten man in the middle. Would highly recommend not transacting using that node or doing anything with that node at all, period, if these hashes do not match. So we can also cross-reference against Callan's hashes. Let's say IMUname got hacked or something. We can make sure that we see the same D69EE hash for our file name, and we do. So we were able to not trust, but in fact verify that we did get the correct archive. So wanted to mention that earlier. Definitely worth doing. You can go an extra step even with the public keys and the key fingerprints to verify that IMUname and Callan are actually who they say they are with these signatures here. We would download their public key fingerprints. You would use the PGP tool to import these, and there's a public key server that is automatically used to make sure that these verify appropriately. Outside of the scope of what we're doing, but I did want to mention.
Yeah, no, that's
all right, so SIGPIG again. Let's get that. We're going to need this service file. Whoops. So I'm just going to go ahead and download that ahead of time as well. Did we just get Node? We should have gotten Node already. So now that we have installed Node, npm install -g for global BCH RPC Explorer. When we do that -g with Node software, npm, like Node.js software, that is going to install it directly to your machine. npm can also be used as a local package manager for your projects, as I'm sure some of you know. But when we're installing a package for system level use, we want global -g. And since we are running BCH RPC Explorer as a standalone app, that's why we're doing that here. So let's see, this broke. How did this break? What the heck is happening here? That's actually crazy.
Oh, no JIP. That's one of the worst things. I absolutely hate.
Yeah,
Whenever
I've seen
no
this
JIP
before.
comes up, you're always like, oh my God. Is there a specific version of Node you need to have? Like sometimes NPM and Node are out of sync. I know they wrap up the Node versions into a package called N, which I've used before kind of easily lets you switch between node versions. You know, like maybe this was running on node whatever 22 and now it's
Yeah, okay, you
24 or
need to
something like that.
use 12.9 or higher. So let's see. It says the
Might be a little bit out of
GitHub.
date actually, you know, because yeah, node is now LTS like 24 or something.
Okay, so I'm at 20.19 here.
Yeah.
And it says I need 12.9, so that's not it. Yeah, no JIP. I've seen this error before. And I am struggling to remember how that is immediately fixed.
Can
So
always ask
maybe...
Grok.
Oh God, let's not go down that route and start giving me all fake information. Let's see. We have a sample in M file, which we're also going to need. Well, we actually don't need this M file either. Our service handles this. But these are all of the config options that you have available for the RPC Explorer as well.
Reinstalling
This has
packages.
got to be...
Let's
Sorry?
see. What I don't know. I'm always just thinking like whenever you get one of those node JIP packages, it's like, yeah, reinstall the dependencies, check the versions are right. What does it say? Entering directory. Command
Yeah, like
failed.
it's trying to build the SECP 256K.
Invalid
like-
argument fchown. Give the
Oh,
right
you know what?
permissions.
I think there's a file here. Yeah, these files here, this BCH diff.cpp and binding.jip. I feel like there's like something that has to get built here. Let's see.
RTFM.
Hey man, read the fine manual for sure.
Oh, we're on ChipNet. Maybe that's also changed it. You may set configuration.
No,
Is it
we
an
haven't even
N
gotten as far
file?
as installing yet. Like, we should be able to work with that. Like we're trying to install here and we're getting this error. Okay, so let's see. It's node jip repo. Maybe we just need to well, let's look at the it's trying to build this, but where is it failing? Hang on. Python, blah 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 blah. Oh, man. What if accessor signature is not a member of V8? Do I need like an older version of Node?
That's what I was saying. If it was on 12.9 and we're now at 20, I
Okay,
mean,
yeah,
that's
so
like
we need a
eight
Node
major
version.
versions. Maybe just like N is a really
I
good
need
one.
NVM, right? So how do we install NVM? Can we do that with npm node version? I think only NVM does that.
Yeah, but I'm like I said, there's a really good package. I don't know if it's on Debian called N, just the letter N, which really
Oh, it's just
easily
called
lets
N.
you switch between different node versions.
It's just called N.
Yeah, I don't know if it's on.
There's I'm just gonna install NVM because I'm already halfway through it.
So I guess this is
So we're gonna follow
also
these.
yeah, this is also something we're gonna have to maybe get in touch with SigPig and be like, bruh, time to time to update your shit. Node 12.9 is what like the I don't know, nearly a decade old or something. Like they do a major release every 2 years, right?
Okay, we just installed NVM. So let's install NVM. What is the latest LTS?
It's like 24 or 26.
2411. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's use that. Can we get like a list? Well, what does it say? 12.9, right? Or higher. Okay, so we are now on node 12.9 thanks to NVM. Great. Let's try that again. npm install BCH RPC Explorer.
It's some really unrecommended type of software practices. Like I said, in this kind of circumstance, you definitely want to get in touch with SickPick and say, hey, what's going on? This decade-old Node version
Right.
works.
I mean,
But,
this is what I can solve myself. This is what's in my control. I can install Node Version Manager, force it to the version that we know will work,
yeah.
and then run this in a container so that it's isolated from everything else. I mean, because okay, so on my actual production infrastructure, I have everything containerized using Proxmox. So like my Explorer runs on a separate container than the actual node and Fulcrum server. Okay,
Imagine
this looks like
reasons.
it's working now. This is definitely like I'm waiting for a compile here.
Good job, team. Emergent Reason says Flipstarter used Node 12 and it was super old already when we made it, lol. That's what I'm saying. I'm fairly sure because like Node 24, I believe they do an LTS every 2 years. So maybe they do a major version once per year, I think. So if it was at least 8 years old, well, now we're on 24, and they roughly match the years, right? So it would be like 2012, 2013 era type of node that we're talking about here. And Node only came out in like 2009, 2010 something. So this is ancient software.
Yeah. All right. We're not even like blowing up these CPUs. This is just taking forever.
Let's just throw up. We've got one more cache stamp as well to chuck on screen here while we let that load. So thank you again to our sponsors at stamps.cash. Once again, the hotfix for the latest Selene release will be coming out probably tomorrow or the day after. But
I mean, it should be. Yeah, I mean, we can check Google Play. They're sometimes kind of fast.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, in any case,
iOS is usually
another version mismatch.
Yeah. The hotfix is on Google Play already. Actually, I was wondering if it was going to be done before the stream is done.
Damn. All right. Okay. I'm gonna try grabbing that right now. But there you go.
So 11.02.
You need 11.02. Okay. So that's it. Literally being at the cutting edge of technology. Is that done? Or if not, give us a quick update about Selene and what you've been working on there. The new release seems to have been well received,
Yeah, it's definitely a labor of love. There's a lot of things that like you can't really see because it's all in the code. But hopefully you can feel, especially like version over version. I really try to do as much like performance optimization and everything that I can and take what I learn and optimize things and refactor things where they make sense to try to just like keep things lean and simple. So over the past couple of updates, we've done a lot with how we sync wallets, kind of learning based on certain heuristics. How can we minimize the amount of addresses that we need to subscribe to when you open up the wallet? Because that directly impacts the amount of time it takes before you can take your first action in the wallet. So we really want to minimize like the hard subscriptions we have to make. We can check like the status of a lot of your addresses that like have already been used like later. That doesn't need to happen like right when the app starts. And then same with like wallet rebuild. We want to make it so that when you rebuild your wallet, it actually finds all of your money and doesn't like get stuck on a gap. That was like a problem we had like really early on is there was some bug that made wallets give like huge gaps. And so like you might have a gap of like 1 to 200 addresses for some reason, and that traditional sync mechanisms are just going to miss. So we had to like think about that. Okay, we got to up it, but we also don't want to just make you sync 1,000 extra addresses for no reason. So there's a lot of small tweaks and considerations that we've made over the past year to really improve that. And I think we finally have the formula like about as good as we're ever going to get it, where we subscribe to the minimal amount of receive addresses that we like are expecting the user to actually care about. So like any receive address that's actually unused right now, we assume that you might at any time get a new transaction on any of those addresses. Any receive address that has more than 2 transactions, we also want to subscribe to because that could be like your static donation addresses or some other kind of recurring payment address, and we don't want to forget about those. But any other address that you have, like that only has exactly 2, like you probably don't care. And in the event that you do and you don't have that subscription anymore, you can just tap on the sync indicator and it'll find all of your money. It'll hard search all of the ones that we specifically didn't search before, and then it'll also scan ahead a little bit just to make sure that there's no gaps. So it's pretty nice as far as like finding all of your money. Like if for any reason, just in general, if you feel like, man, I feel like there should be a couple more sats here in this wallet, hit the sync indicator, like the connection button in the top right corner. And if that feeling is valid, Celine, I can pretty confidently say will find your money if there's money to be found.
And for people who want to use Selene for ChipNet, for building things in Blaze and so forth, how do they do that?
Yep, so we're gonna have to go into debug mode. It's pretty hidden away, but what you got to do is open up your wallet. You're gonna go into settings,
You can
scroll
even
all the way down to the bottom.
we can even show it. Just go on the web version and
Yeah, I
let's,
forgot that I'm even on
let's show
camera.
on.
Yeah, I can just do that. So yeah, let's go on app.celine.cache. Oh wait, let's not go on app.celine.cache because that's not a good idea.
That's your actual,
Yeah,
your
because
actual
then that's
wallet.
gonna show my actual wallet. Let me pull up my dev wallet by spinning up my dev wallet server.
Normally, though, you can go in your own browser to app.selene.cache.
Okay, well, I pulled up my wallet anyway, so I guess we're just gonna dox this 15 BCH. Anyway, you go into settings and you go into this button down here. On light mode, it's green. On dark mode, it's black. Tap on the QR code once and then press and hold here on the logo. And that'll bring you into this debug view. And what you got to do is just right here, debug options, mainnet, set that to chipnet. Boom, you're in.
There you go.
And so now what we can actually do is let's see if we can connect to our node. Since we're waiting on RPC Explorer still for some reason, I really don't know what's going on there. But we can go ahead to, right now we're connected to Callan server. Let's go ahead and add BCH node BCH.ninja. And we connected right away. So check it out. We go in our console. You can see right here, Electrum connected, BCH node.bch.ninja on chipnet.
Boom.
Oh yeah, guys, we're
Simple
running a
as that.
chipnet node. So let me where can I get some sats from like right now? Because my chipnet wallet's on a different computer.
All right, well, let's we
Yeah.
don't need to do that right now. But
Doesn't
for
matter.
Blaze, yeah, we will have chipnet coins that we can distribute and send to people. So
No, actually, so I have my miner mining to an anyone can spend address right now. I will leave that challenge up to the viewer. Go on to chipnet.bch.ninja to view my Explorer that is currently running in production. We can see that we've got my CPU miner running dutifully here. Let's go ahead and pull up this block. And let's go ahead and look at the Coinbase transaction. This is the address that the chipnet.bch.ninja miner is mining to, and it looks like my Fulcrum server on chipnet is down or something. But if we look at the let's go to imaginaries. All right. I've been having issues with my infrastructure recently because of I just migrated also like to a upgraded server like a day or two ago. So there just might be some loose ends there. So we're on imaginaries instead. I'm sure his is working at the moment. Okay, great. Alrighty, so if we investigate this address, does it give us the script? Is the script pub key enough? I'm not actually sure. Can we decode the address? Anyway, that's a challenge for the viewer. Can you decode the address and find out how to unlock these UTXOs? There is 46,400 BCH on this address currently, and it is in fact up for grabs, and 25 more tends to come in about every 10 minutes. Now, I do ask, hey, don't drain the whole wallet. I mean, yeah, we'll get more Bitcoin, but leave some for the rest of us, eh? All you have to do is solve the script. So, challenge for all of you hackers out there. Steal this money. It's public. If you ever need chipnet sats, just solve this puzzle and you can get some chipnet sats from off my miner.
Perfect. Cool little Easter egg right there.
Oh, this broke. How do we have permission denied when we're root? That's crazy, bro.
I don't know.
Did we run out of
Sudo
space?
it.
Maybe we ran out of space. Oh no, because we're not even running mainnet. So that's I put almost 300 gigs on this so that we could sync mainnet if we wanted. I wanted to show the performance difference. It would be like a couple hours, but yeah, so I'm having issues building the Sick Pig Explorer, it looks like. I'm not totally sure what happened there. If it's something I can figure out in like the next 30 seconds, then
Yeah,
I'll figure it
permission
out.
denied.
Otherwise, we'll just have to move on.
We can't just sudo it, otherwise.
No, I am root right now.
I don't know. Well, I guess that's also something that we can follow up then with SickPig, and I mean we're on such an old version of Node that's like ridiculous. It's
yeah,
not that unlikely we would have extra problems.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Yeah, no JIP. I mean, you already know. Failed to install scripts. Probably not a problem with NPM. Yeah, no, for sure.
No jip gets us again.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I don't know why I'm getting these permission errors here. That's so crazy, but oh well.
It's all right. We've done
I
nearly
guess
2
we'll skip
hours.
that for now.
So basically, it looks like what you were just showing us there, right? With the imaginary, the
Yes.
SickPig Explorer.
Yeah.
Just looks
If
like
you were able to run it, you could try running it through Docker instead of going to npm. But then we'd have to go and install Docker and all that, and I'm not doing all that right now. So, guys, if you want to install the Explorer, Node is one way if you can get it to work. That's how I do it. I don't know why it works on mine. I'll have to go and reverse engineer it because I set this up like 4 years ago. But you could also just do it via Docker. And that's also pretty easy. It should just work if it's Docker. Actually, let's look in the Docker file. What node version is he using? Node Buster Slim. So Buster, God, isn't that like Debian 8? God. Oh, and then here we
Time
go.
for an
Node
update,
JIT
yeah.
rebuild. Yeah. Maybe if I install like this stuff, like, but we're not gonna do all that right now.
No, we're not gonna.
If I was gonna go down the debug route, this is how I would do it. I would probably run these commands here and then like do this LD preload and see if it works. But we like you said, we've been on for like 2 hours and we're not gonna go down
We've
that rabbit hole.
we've done a pretty good job. I think we fixed the previous issue, and then that's proof that we're competent. So anyway, whatever. There'll be.
So anyway, okay. So what we accomplished then, just recap, we did install Bitcoin D with Bitcoin Cash Node. We installed the service file for it. We did Fulcrum in the service file for it. We configured your firewall. We configured your SSH, and we configured your Nginx web server.
And a little bit of SSL, right? Kind of cheated on that, but
Yep. And then we did certbot for SSL using Nginx to kind of glue it all together. And what we would have done here with Nginx, I'll just kind of quick run through what we would have done with the RPC Explorer. So we would have downloaded the service file just like we did before. So I'll wget it. Let's just examine the contents real quick. You have to set these environment variables so it looks differently than our other files. User group are not root, very important. In our case, the sample file, your Bitcoin is on localhost. You want to make sure you pass the RPC username and password just like before. And then you also want to make sure you define this Electrum X server appropriately. TLS, also known as SSL, for our purposes. Make sure you just set that to your domain. And then TCP, if you're on localhost, it's going to be more performant if you also just give it a localhost non-encrypted port to work with. These two options make it a little bit quicker to run your Explorer. If you run just the default settings, you're going to end up running into some throttling issues. And then actually there is a hack we have to do with that too, but unfortunately I can't show you because we don't have it installed, but maybe I can show you in the source. There is just one file we have to change. And I think it's in here for rate limiting. Okay, can't find it. It's in there somewhere. I guess that'll just also have to be for another time. But there's a setting in here in one of these files for rate limiting that you're also going to want to go and find and set. It might be in here or something. Config. limit. I don't know. Totally wrong, but it's in there. It's in there somewhere. You're just gonna have to look around. Competent sysadmin, you can find it. I believe in you guys.
All right. Anything else? We've got an opportunity for final questions here at the end. I think we already answered the ones that was in the chat. I don't know if Jet, you have any further questions.
I think we have another cash stamp though, don't we?
We do. You can throw that up as well too if you want.
I guess I
And
do have a question.
yeah, what is it?
How can and maybe we should take this one off stream, but how can we make this SSL setup easier? Because this is the worst
I was gonna say,
fucking part
yeah.
about it. And yeah, I'm set. I don't want to use Nginx. Like, I love Caddy so much in 4 lines.
Okay, you don't actually have to use Nginx. I was just doing that because it serves 2 purposes of also giving the SSL certificate for the Explorer. But you
Okay.
can actually not use Nginx at all and just use certbot. And then if you can just figure out the permissions things that we were running into where you just symlink the certs to wherever your fulcrum config is.
Right. So
Or actually what you do, you don't even have to do that. Scratch that. Simply, okay, you do have to change the permissions, but just you don't have to link it. Just change the permissions so that your fulcrum, whatever user your fulcrum server is running as, set the permissions of your certificate to that. There's instructions on the certbot docs to do that. What I was doing should have worked. I don't know why it didn't. But then in your fulcrum config, just set it straight to the path of where the Let's Encrypt certs live. So etc. Let's Encrypt live, whatever. Just put that straight in your fulcrum config and it'll just work.
why is it that Fulcrum needs direct access to these SSLs? Certificates, I guess.
I guess it's just because of how it works, because of it's setting up its own socket. So it's setting up its own WebSocket also. I never really questioned that. You could probably reverse proxy it.
Yeah, I'm set on it because I also have to deal with my MikroTik firewall and network address translation shit. And like,
yeah.
I have one Caddy server. I want to define all of my reverse proxies in there, and those can talk to other local machines. But I don't want to have to then have like a bunch of network address translation rules about, oh, if it's these ports, go to this server, and if it's these ports, go to this server, and have to and then 2 different.
You shouldn't have to. So I'm showing my my Explorer config for Nginx.
Yeah, let me turn off
on screen right now. And so I know Caddy has like similar functionalities. So here's the way I would look at it. So I'm using Nginx for SSL termination, reverse proxy, similarly to how you're using Caddy. So you would adapt this for yourself. Nginx, instead of using the HTTP module, which is what this is going to automatically get loaded in, and we'd be using proxy pass here, that only works for HTTP. What we would actually want to do is use the Nginx stream module, and that's going to allow you to just send the raw TCP stream directly to the server. That would probably work. I was able to make this work because I spun up a cache fusion server for the guy who's developing cache fusion for Selene right now. He needed a test server. And that also required SSL. So I had to figure out how to make that work, and I was struggling with it. I found the Nginx stream module, and that solved my problems. So I think the real issue is we just need the raw stream to go directly to the server instead of having the HTTP headers and everything attached to it, and it should just work.
I'll look into that. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is this is a potential Blaze project for somebody, is to make like a much easier spin up a node, like one script that, does all that stuff as much as possible, automates all this, puts the files in the right places.
I mean, honestly, like I said, everything that we just did could very easily just be a script. So yeah.
Well, somebody can make it for Blaze, and then you can just run it. Maybe even something that spins up a server, automatically puts it in there. Maybe some kind of Docker image. I don't know, whatever. But this is exactly what we're trying to do with Blaze, is make people's lives easier. And it can be at the layer of cool stuff for the end user, or it can also be all this behind the scenes infrastructure stuff. And I think actually a couple of the judges would be pretty impressed with that kind of stuff too. I would certainly like it. That would maybe get some of my Blaze Vote community tokens. Okay, I want to give a quick shout out as well to our sponsors who've been making this all happen. We've got BCH Bull, a unique web application that allows users to take long positions with leverage or hedge, or take long leverage or hedge with or short with Bitcoin Cash against a number of other metals, fiat, and crypto assets at bchbull.com. General Protocols, who prides itself on developing permissionless, trustless, borderless financial solutions for the whole world, working at the frontier of UTXO blockchain development at generalprotocols.com. The BCH podcast, you're watching it, you love it, combines the latest cryptocurrency and Bitcoin Cash news with deep dives on BCH topics, featuring a variety of guests from the BCH community at bitcoincashpodcast.com. Celine Wallet for easy, no hassle, instant payments in the palm of your hand. Experience the future of money, a global digital economy powered by BCH at Celine.cash. Cash Stamps, who we've been giving away, allows users to create and redeem BCH stamps for gifts, promotion, and adoption at stamps.cash. Blockchain for Good Alliance, harness the transformative power of blockchain technology to tackle some of the most critical challenges facing societies and the world at large today at chainforgood.org. BCH1 is the signal layer for Bitcoin Cash, community discovery, builder velocity, and capital alignment. BCH-1.org, and Big Hair Tom, an old timer that just wants wallet addresses simplified. Thank you very much to all of them. Go check that out if you are involved in Blaze, because you're going to love all that different stuff. We have one more cash stamp, I think, provided you didn't put it up before. That's for listening to the sponsor read. Grab yourself some sats there, and our final announcements, which is that you should remember to register on Dora Hacks. My target is let's hit 100. We're at 73. So if you're interested in these streams, just go sign up. You can figure out all the details afterwards, but get yourself in there. The hackathon itself will be starting next week, 7 days. Saturday, November 15th at 2 p.m. UTC. We will do a live stream to get everyone in the vibe and kick things off. But you can, of course, start coding as soon as that the clock strikes 2. And then you can also follow the other stream dates that we have on the schedule. There's also contact points for Blaze on the Dora Hacks questions tab, at BCH Blaze on Telegram, and at BCH Blaze on Twitter. And to follow BCH in general, you can check out the Bitcoin Cash podcast and the bchbullet.substack.com. I think that's everything. One final announcement: the Bitcoin Cash podcast, the next episode, it's not going to be Blaze focused, but it will be live tomorrow at 2 p.m. UTC on the 9th of November. But Blaze itself will be ready to go next week, Saturday, November 15th, for the lock-in at 2 p.m. UTC. Any other final messages or announcements? Anything I'm forgetting? Callisti, shield yourself for people who want to find more of you.
I'm Callisti.cash. Find me at Callisti.cash. Literally type it in your browser. It'll redirect to my Twitter. Kallisti. Make sure there's 2 L's in there. Some people miss that. Find me on Twitter at KZCallisti. I'm on other socials as well, but Twitter is the only one that matters. Callisti.io is my website. It's got everything else there. Email, whatever. BCH donation address if you feel like it. Try Celine Wallet. It's amazing. You all love it. We already know. I don't gotta shill that. Celine.cash. New update just came out. Dark mode's in. Testing the new stablecoin mode. It's in pre-release. It's pretty sick. Really cool new BCH developments. Excited to see all the hacking that goes on for Blaze. Yeah, and I'm just really excited for the future of BCH here. We're all kind of kicking ass. Probably see me again on the podcast for the New Year episode.
Yes.
The end of year episode.
Yeah, it'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. Shout out to Tomek Jagodowski, who says, awesome intro into running a BCH node. We'll try to run mine now. Yep. Good luck with that. And of course, you've got the stream to refer back to and all the slides and everything. So if you have any grief, just jump in the Telegram chat for BCHN, or go on bitcoincashpodcast.com/code, and there's links to a lot of the Telegram groups and stuff where you can get more help for that.
I also have a video from like 2017 or 2018 titled "How to Get a BCHD Node Up in 5 Minutes." It's probably out of date at this point, but it's the main gist is there. Go nuts.
Might help you.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess last message as far as node running, it doesn't have to be like as complicated as everything we just did. This is with the intent of like having production grade, like long-standing node software. Like if you just want to run it as a hobby, just spin up a node or put it on your home computer and just let it rip. You don't got to do all this.
Yeah, the difference, like when I did that first video, I ran it on an X220 ThinkPad laptop, right? And now it's like, yeah, now I run Fulcrum and BCHN, and like that infrastructure is on the like actual server.
Yeah.
Different scale entirely, it feels.
Yeah.
Well, this is how we're running the global revolution. It's funny that I spend so much time on the podcast and we're talking about all the high level theory and people's new products and stuff like that. But this is really, down closer to the metal in terms of all the stuff that we have to run, which of course, banks do, other cryptocurrencies do. There's just tech teams all around the world constantly keeping all this stuff online for everyone. And I think as a user, it's often easy to forget just how much there is below the iceberg, but it has to all get funded somehow. So that's one final shout out is, of course, you can donate to the BCH Blaze stream that we have the QR code here. 50% of that goes into the prize pool, and 50% goes into Blaze operations. So we can bring you tutorials like this, but of course, all the different infrastructure in the BCH ecosystem as well. It all needs a lot of love, and a lot of love goes into it. And to keep those devs paid and working on it, any contributions that anybody in the scene wants to make is always more than welcome. Or just reaching out to the devs and saying you appreciate them, because that also sometimes makes a very big difference. It can often be a bit of a solitary project or a labor of love, like you mentioned. So I think that'll do it for this week. Like I said, podcast tomorrow, and Blaze will be kicking off in 1 week from now. So prepare your ideas, get your nodes spun up, and we'll see you then.